So I want to break this down because I always think about, like, if I was explaining this to my 19-year-old son to get him on the right path for finances, how would I explain to this? So I'm going to tell you what I think you're saying, and then you tell me where I'm wrong, because I'm sure I'm wrong.
Perfect.
I can walk into whatever, Vanguard, Fidelity, whatever. I can buy a financial product. I put my $100,000 into a mutual fund, and they charge me some type of load or fee or ongoing 12B-147 fee or something like that. And basically they're collecting fees either upfront or through the life of the investment. And that's kind of just, it's a cost. Or that's one way that you can do investments. Or I can go to one of the big boys, one of the wealth-based private banks, and I can say, hey, I'm putting my whole $500,000 net worth with you, my retirement, my cash, everything. You manage it for me. You do what you're going to do, and they're going to charge me some type of wrap fee or management fee. So they'll charge me like 1% or 2% of the assets. It doesn't matter whether it goes up or goes down, goes up to $1 million or down to 400,000. Every year they're going to charge me 1% or 2% to manage that money. And theoretically, since they're charging a fee and they know that I'm only going to stay with them if they do well, presumably they're doing a better job, but they probably only have the same stocks, bonds to sell me that I could do by myself. And that's kind of like fee-based planning. What you're talking about is you're saying, like, Scott, leave your money in your business, because I own a couple businesses. Leave your $500,000 in Northwestern Mutual, where you have your whatever life insurance and your stocks and bonds.
Sure.
Leave your money in your 401k, but we're going to charge you, and I'll just take a guess, we're going to charge you $40,000 a year to be on a retainer with Fred's team, and we're going to advise you on taxes and potential investments that are maybe off the table, because luckily my wife and I are blessed. We do make over $300,000 a year, so we would be considered accredited investors, and you're basically going to do some type of true financial advisement to me on a fee base, where you're like, hey, you might want to look at this with Northwestern Mutual, might want to do this with your 401k, might want to redeploy $100,000 to your consolidated coaching business. And oh, by the way, we've got $100,000 to invest in this new Amazon distribution center, and you'll probably double your money in 5 years or something like that. Am I getting this right, like conceptually?
So the 40,000, I think the most expensive retainer I ever did was 25,000. Our minimum's 8, which rolls out to be 2,000 a quarter.
Okay.
And if we can't bring in more than 8,000 of value to a client, we shouldn't, we'll disengage before the clients do. So that part's right. The second thing is there is a place for low cost, long-term passive investment, and that's what Vanguard and Fidelity are suited for. So the fees on the Vanguard and Fidelity, you don't even notice. They are micro 4 digits into the decimal system versus the 1 or 2% working with a big bank or whatever. So when you add to that we had a good example is a client who worked for a huge Fortune 500 company and had a $250,000 account with one of those accounts that were the fee-based, like you were talking, and had $4 million in his 401k. So this guy, and when you're fee-based, all of us have limited amount of time. So when you're fee-based, you have to have minimums, or else you can't make money on $50,000, 1% of 50,000. You just don't have enough time. So this guy had like a $3 million minimum, and who's now my client, let this guy in for 250 because this guy knew he had a $6 million 401k that, if he did his job, he'd come out. So my client now, he wasn't my client then, said, okay, you're charging me 1% of 250,000. What are you going to do different for the 1% of 4 million? That's $40,000. It gets right ironically to the number you were talking about. And the guy didn't have an answer. It's the same shit. It's the same allocation. It's the same. And I had a client, a different guy, $17 million, all in stocks and bonds. And I said, hey, you did a great job. You built a great portfolio. You're not in anything different than my twins. What do you mean? Like, I can get them an S&P 500 and they're in the same shit you're in. And then he gave us enough of his statements to actually do the analysis. He had 4 different brokers that were eating, they're kind of 4 different kitchens, doing 4 different things, but they all baked the same cake. And I said, listen, I'm going to save you a lot of money. You can put $17 million into the one S&P index fund. Not, you shouldn't, but he had the exact same exposure, paying 4 guys 1% to do their own thing, versus if you just bought the S&P 500, same exposure. No one should have $17 million in one ticket. But the asinine part of it is he wasn't going to be any less diversified because he was in the same stuff.
Right.
So those conversations open. So absolutely right about that retainer. Ironically, and this could change, but every one of our retainer clients haven't made it to the second year under the retainer model, because during the year they use us to do things that they can't do without us. And we get a finder's fee. So if you did put 100,000 in the Amazon, we get a 5% finder's fee, but your first statement still shows 100,000. So it's not a load. It's just the way credit investments, you're going to be rare. Credit investors are rare. Offices that can do this are rare. I couldn't do this when I was at the big brokerage firm. You can't do that. Any brokerage company you know the name of probably doesn't do true accredited investments,
right?
Because they have 18,000 reps, and they can't have all these people have these kind of illiquid. You really need to know your client. And our clients don't go right into the alternatives. They're planning clients first.
Right.
We make sure your stuff is okay everywhere else. So then you can buy the jacuzzi, but we have to make sure your roof isn't leaking, and the roof might not be with us, but we'll look at it.
Right.
So you're absolutely on track. So the sad part of the conversation is at $8,000 a year, that's not something that your son can plug in. Hopefully he'll have, he must have a really good lawn mowing business if he has, the kind of network. But we help our clients' kids as just part of the retainer. And so it's not a crazy idea. It's a unique idea that I don't know why I'm the first person. It reminds me of the woman who trademarked Happy Birthday. She figured out no one owned it, so she went and got a trademark, and now we can't sing it in a restaurant. Right. So I'm not saying I want to screw people out of, now we have to have the stupid Chi-Chi's Happy Birthday or whatever the new, whatever the restaurant's version of it is. Wow, I just dated myself with Chi-Chi reference.
Totally.